Hello and welcome back to Up the Villa podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Dave from Talking Wolves. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, mate. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good stuff. So, there's a lot been going on at Wolves on and off the pitch, quite a lot off the pitch. So, we'll sort of go back to the summer, really. What was going on, mate, with Lopetegui and all this like FFP and players leaving? So what's been happening?
Yeah, it was a bit of a nightmare, to be fair. I think it sort of started towards the back end of last season. It might have been just after the Villa game, actually, and it had come to light that basically the funds were going to be, well, there wasn't really going to be much funds in the summer for Lopetegui to spend, and there was all this narrative about FFP, and no one could really actually see what was going on. Because some sources were saying basically we just needed to sell to buy because we were spending so much. Other sources were saying we were in FFP trouble. And basically Lopetegui said he wasn't aware of that when he took the job. So season finished. Obviously didn't really finish how we wanted to. We were safe, but had a couple of heavy defeats towards the end of the season. And then it took Lopetegui ages to sort of commit his future to the club. And sort of he was getting closer and closer to the pre-season. And then I think a week or so before they were coming back, he said, right, I'm happy to carry on. Transfers didn't speed up. It took us a long time. Neves went really early, which was expected, and probably for a little bit more than we expected to be honest, to go to Saudi Arabia. And then Lopetegui, I think it was maybe 2 weeks before the season, we played Celtic, and he'd sort of gone to our sporting director Matt Hobbs and says, "Look, I want to leave the club." He said, "I'll carry on coaching the team whilst you find the manager for the next week or so, and then I want to go." So that's what happened. Gary O'Neill was obviously the man who's coming at short notice. And I think if I asked any Villa fan, would you have had him at Villa? You would have said no. If you asked any Wolves fan, would you have had him at Wolves? You probably would have said no as well. So it's been a very, very difficult job for him because he wasn't the top of anybody's list. I think he's won a few more fans, obviously, after the weekend's result. But this time last week, there were a huge amount of doubters, to be honest. So there's been some good things, some bad things with him so far. But yeah, thankfully after Saturday's win, things are looking a little bit better for us. But like you say, it was an absolute car crash of a summer for us, really.
Yeah, it's just chaotic, weren't it? But do you buy that FFP problems though? With the amount of money that's been coming in, surely you can't be under that much problems anymore, especially with like Neves, etc.
I'm not great with the financial side of football stuff anyway, but there were a lot of people on Twitter sort of scratching head thinking, well, they were trying to work it out even after we'd sold Neves, like, this is the amount of money we can spend. We've got money to spend. We can spend it. I think what it was probably the board just being, Fosun have pumped a lot of money into the club. When we were both in the Championship, you saw that when Lopetegui had come in, they needed to spend to strengthen the squad to make the squad stronger. So I think they've spent more money than what they would have wanted to. And they've said it for the last 2 or 3 years. They want to make Wolves a self-sustainable team. They want to buy players, but with funds they're collecting from players they're selling. So it's yeah, I don't buy it completely, to be honest.
Yeah. So you've touched on Gary O'Neill, and from a Villa fan looking at Wolves from afar, I'm looking at, and I have been watching quite a bit of Wolves, to be fair. So I feel like, I've been watching the games, I've been making my observation, and I feel like when it's sort of back to the wall, sort of, you're not expected to get anything from that game. You tend to be setting up quite well, sort of on the counter-attack. United, you played brilliantly against Liverpool first half. City, it was back to the walls against Everton because I felt like they played quite well against you, but you won that game. And then Luton, Palace and Brighton, where you kind of want to see a bit what you're all about with the ball, etc. It's not been that great in those. So what have you made of sort of the first 7 games, basically?
Yeah, it's been sort of all over the place. And apologies if you can't hear my dogs in the background. They're getting excited for some reason. Yeah, I mean, the United game was the big one because we bring that up all the time on our podcasts and stuff because Lopetegui had just gone. And this was we went into that game at Old Trafford thinking, right, the head coach had barely any time. We were expecting to lose that game, but the quality of performance was like really surprising with how good we were. And obviously we were unlucky with a penalty shout at the end, but that's a completely different conversation. The Brighton game, we just fell apart for about 10 minutes where they scored 3 goals. We could have gone in at half time. We were 1-0 down. We could have gone in ahead. First 10 minutes, second half, we just fell apart, and that cost us the game. and yeah, just been levels of performances have been all over the place, really. But the Brighton game was disappointing. Palace game was disappointing. Everton, like you said, that was probably one of our worst performances of the season, and we managed to get a win. Thankfully, Everton were as bad as us. And the Palace game. But I think on the face of it, now obviously we beat City as well. I think points per game is probably roughly where I would have expected us to be. Because if you swap a couple of the results around, like if you got a point away at Palace, you beat Luton, and you probably would have lost to City. You'd be where we wanted to be. But Liverpool game as well a couple of weeks ago, unbelievable first half and just fell apart second half. So I think it's up to Gary O'Neill just to try and get a consistent level of performance. But from behind the scenes, it sounds like the club are really impressed with how he's getting on so far.
Yeah, so like style of play wise, can you gauge what he's trying to do?
It's difficult, and I think he'll completely change his game plan because we went with a back five for the first time under him against City, and it worked perfectly. And I think he'll stick with that against Villa as well. So compared to how he's been playing, he's almost been setting up with a 4-2-3-1, a 4-3-3 in some games. Likes to keep the ball. We were playing a high line, which I don't think suited Kilman and Dawson because they are good defenders, but they were getting caught out quite a lot. But I think the back five suits us a lot better. A bit more stability at the back. We've obviously got talented forwards. We've started to score goals, which has been our biggest issue over the last few years or so. But yeah, we have got quality players, and it's a squad that should be good enough to stay in the Premier League. It's just up to Gary O'Neill to just keep grinding out results. Obviously, it's going to be a tough game on Sunday, but sort of we've had a tough start. We've come back after the international break. We've got a lot of games against teams that, in my opinion, we should be getting points against. So I think we could slowly crawl up the table, hopefully towards Christmas.
Yes, so turn our attention to Sunday then. What does this game mean to you as a Wolves fan? Because I feel like whenever we go into this, we never approach it like a derby for some reason. And I feel like Wolves do. Like I've been at the Molineux the last couple of Wolves Villa games, and I've always just been like, you're all up for it. I don't know, I just feel like we don't see it as a derby for some reason. So what does it mean to you?
I think, to be fair, I think it's always a big game, only because I think, Villa are on paper, and because of how Blues and Albion have been getting on. The last time Albion were in the Prem, we were sort of behind closed doors anyway. So this is the closest we would get to a derby match as such, really. And obviously the whole mind the gap thing in the Championship as well. But I don't know. I think in regards to a local, sorry, mate. I don't know what's
It's
going
all
on
right,
with
mate.
this, but, in regards to a local match, this is, and I've had to stick with Villa fans. They've given back to me, and I don't know, and we always tend to do quite well. So I think it's always nice. There are a lot of Wolves fans in and around the Birmingham area still, so they've got Villa fans. I've got a few mates that are Villa fans as well, so it's nice to have that bit of banter. But I reckon secretly a lot of Villa fans are up for this game. They look at the fixture list and they always pick out the Wolves fixture, I reckon.
Do you reckon? I mean, to be fair now, Neves normally scores against us. He's gone.
Yeah.
Podence normally scores. He's gone.
He's
Then
gone.
Donker plays for us. So
Yeah.
kind of got no one left now that normally does the damage against us. So hopefully it stays that way. But
Yeah.
what have you made of Villa this season?
Oh man! Ever since Emery has come in, obviously Villa have been fantastic, haven't they? And even in the league, I know obviously playing in Europe before we take on each other on Sunday. But yeah, he's been fantastic, and I think Gerrard obviously at the time when you brought him in was a good manager. I think a lot of clubs in England were looking at him, and for one reason or another, obviously it didn't work. And I think Villa did very, very well to get a manager of Emery's caliber in. I know obviously he didn't beat us last season, but he's got you guys, signed some great players, got you playing some good football, and obviously started well again this season. So it is going to be a very tough game. And although we've got the better of Villa over the last couple of years, especially at Molineux, I think this is going to be the toughest test that we have for a long, long time.
Yeah. How do you see the game going then? What do you expect it to be like?
It'll be interesting because obviously Wolves will be in a high after beating City. But, Villa were, they took the chances and smashed Brighton, who, came to Molineux and smashed us. So it'll be difficult to say. And will the fitness factor that you guys are playing on Thursday, will that, become a factor? I'm not sure, but I think it'll be a close game. Obviously, I would back Wolves to edge it, but Villa, have got the form and got the quality to make it a really tough match for Wolves, I think.
Cool. Right, that's it, mate. Thanks for coming on and giving your thoughts. I'll put
It's all right,
your
mate, no problem.
description in the tag in the description. So anyone that wants to check out your content build up to this game, I'm going on Talking Wolves as well. So go and show that channel some love as well. So cheers,
Yeah.
mate. Enjoy the game.
Thanks a lot, buddy. Thank you.